One of the most wonderful things about doing this exhibit was the opportunity to talk with various families about their stories and coming here and what it was like for them. And we're just so excited to be able to talk with the Joshi family today and find out more about their story. So Hansa came over to this country in 1959, is that correct? And I just want to ask you just some basic questions about what were the circumstances that brought you here to Wisconsin?
My husband came here to study at University of Wisconsin Madison, and I followed him after 1 year. We were married 5 years before, but it took us that much time to collect enough money to come here. And he studied 1 year at the University of Wisconsin. I was supposed to start my study when I came here because I had admission to go to university also. So we both came with a student visa. In between, he got a job in a company in Menasha, and whole plan changed. Instead of becoming a student, I stayed here and started life here. So my studies stayed there at Madison on a papers, and later on I took classes at University Oshkosh and continued instead of Madison.
Can you tell us a little bit about your actual journey here? What was that like?
It was a tough time. I was the first one to come out from the family, last child in a family, and it was not an easy circumstances in my family. So when I came, it was not a happy time from the family wise, because no parents want to send their child that far away. But once the child is married, there is nothing they can change. And I came by boat. That was second reason they were not happy. So it took me almost like 25 days before I came here. And it was a long journey, completely different, very tough.
What time of year was it when you arrived?
I came in 59 February. January I started from Bombay. And from Bombay until London, we came with a Caledonia boat. It was a big ship, but it was a passenger ocean liner. So it was not too bad. Not too many people from India. We had one family stayed up to Eden, so there was no problem. Company was there. But then it was hard. From there we started to London. We stopped all the ports. We did go out at the ports, so that was some relief to get out from the boat. At London, we stayed 2 days in London. I met a very nice gentleman and a lady who worked in a Y in London. We did not know anything about London, so she took us to YMCA and YWCA and made arrangement for us so we can stay there, because we had no idea about other part of the world at that time. I met a Pakistani gentleman at that time also. he was very nice gentleman, but at that time, for India to trust a Pakistani, and especially the young girl, it was no. But my father did not know at that thing. So he was very nice man. We stayed almost like 2 days in London, and the same couple came at the Y and took us to the boat dock so we can start from London to New York. And that was another company.
So how long of a trip was it from London then to New York at that time?
Possibly almost like 9 to 10 days,
Mm.
because we stopped at Canada.
Okay.
And every time they stopped, we were allowed to go out. Now, we came from India, which is nice tropical country, no cold, no snow, so we were all prepared with our Indian shoes and clothing and everything. We did go out to at least have some fresh air in Halifax. Cold was so much, we couldn't go too far. We fell down a couple of times because our shoes were not allowing to go too far. But we just kept on going, and finally we gave it up. And we came back in a boat and stayed there. It took, I think, almost like half a day in Halifax, and then they started back again, and we came to New York.
I think it's so wonderful that you have all of these memories intact and you can recall this entire trip. It must have just been such a pivotal moment in your life to be making this journey. How old were you when you were doing this?
Well, I think I was 25.
That's young.
And that's the first and last tough part of the life. And that, how can you forget it?
Exactly. So you arrived in New York then wearing traditional clothes from India.
I just came in a sari because I did not have any other clothes. At that time, these kind of clothes are from the northern part of India, because northern part of India is cold. Compared to Wisconsin, nothing is cold. But in that area, it is cold. So they use this clothing even in the Middle East also. So they have a long pant, almost like a soft material, but pant. And we call kurta and pajama. Now pajama in English language for sleeping, but this is one they use for using daily clothing in a northern part of India. In my area, we use simple saris.
Okay.
So
you arrived wearing a sari in New York in the winter in February.
Yes, I did not have this thing, and when I did go back in '67, I tried to make this kind of dresses because our clothing were made by the tailors. So I bought the material and I made it, and my mother was little bit angry. She said, "We don't use those kind of things. That's not our style."
So then you arrived in New York and you somehow made your way to Wisconsin to meet up with your husband. And what was that situation like? And what were some of the immediate challenges you faced when you were arriving in Wisconsin?
Well, I met his classmate, maybe from India and from here, and his name was Krishnakant Amin. He was from our area, he spoke our language. So he came to pick me up. He brought me to his house. He made a nice Indian meal, and we had a quiet time. And at that time, Mr. and Mrs. Kathleen were in New York. So they came in afternoon. The Krishna knew them also. And he said, "We are waiting. Mom and Dad are coming here, and then we will take you to airport." so you can fly back to Wisconsin. So they came, I met them, they were surprised and they took me to airport. But being experienced person, she knew what climate was going to be in Wisconsin. They were expecting blizzard. So she gave a call to her sister. Her name was Mrs. Ellison, and they were waiting at Milwaukee airport. And yes, it was snow. They took me finally at their house. I had to stay overnight. And second day, flights were not going, so I had to go by train. And at Neenah, I met Dave and Mrs. Hardy because she brought him in a car. We did not have a car.
Okay.
So she took me at a home that mom and dad made it ready for me in Menasha.
So, just so people can understand who you're talking about, who were Mr. and Mrs. Catlin?
Mr. and Mrs. Catlin, they were friend of the roommate. They met them in a university, and he was a VP in a company, Gilbert Paper Company, and he offered him a job in a summertime that they work here, and later on he offered him a job because university gave them 18 months training time because their visa was given 18 months after the degree. So Mr. Catlin was on a meeting in New York at that time, and Mrs. Catlin joined them. And as a proper manner to talk, you cannot call person like that Mr. and Mrs. all the time. So either you give a little kind of a name base. So we asked her what is the right way to say, because we cannot call you every day Mrs. Catlin. So she suggested, why don't you call me mother? So we started to call her mother. Automatically became Dave. And later on, she really took care of me as my mother. I never have a mother. I never saw my mother. But she became a mother that I never forgot.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and she became grandmother of my children too. And later on, when I came to Neenah, second day, I met her second sister, Mrs. Bram. She came with her last daughter, Susan, and I met them. And Mrs. Catlin gave her a direction that we have made the apartment ready. We think what the things she would need, but you take her to the store, she may need something different. If she sees something, then she would recognize, because we don't know her language, we don't know her name. So it was different for everybody.
I just love that we have this really long family connection.
I never forgot them in my life.
Yeah.
And my parents would not also, because they got so much satisfaction that somebody is there to take care of my child.
That's wonderful. So, I never knew that my mom took you to the grocery store until Shalini told me that story.
Because see, we were stuck as a climate-wise, you could not go out too far. At home, there was no problem. You can go to the store anytime you want, and no climate problem.
Right.
So here you can hardly go half a block and you have to turn around.
That's right. So you arrived here and you got settled and you made some friends right away, and that's wonderful. What were some of the challenges that you faced with setting up your home and establishing yourself here, and what were some of the differences, climate, and probably, what about food? Was that a challenge for you?
Well, challenge in a sense that everything you could not get it. But then mother arranged that go to the Y, because at that time YWCA had an international club. So she introduced me to the secretary of the club. And that lady also knew foreign people. So every time any meeting is there, she will call me. And she said, don't worry, somebody will come and pick you up. So I met the people and knew different really experience from them. Because all those paper companies, they had some international people from different parts of the world, especially European countries and South American countries. And she herself was from Janesville. So meeting different people helped to know. I met one lady who gave me a ride. Her husband was owning the grocery store in downtown Menasha. So they came down to visit me, and she asked me the same question, how can we help you? So she took me to her store, and her husband asked me, so I got a small container of the spices, and the red pepper which we use so much, hot pepper, so I got that one. And I said, okay, why don't I pick up three, 4 boxes? And he says, are you going to use that? I said, well, this may not last too long. So he said, why don't I give you the whole box if you can take a 6 pound? I said, that will be fine. He was so surprised that I would need a 6 pounds of black hot pepper. I say yes. So he helped us a lot.
That's fantastic. So Indian food is much spicier than traditional American food.
Well,
So you had to search for spices to make Indian food.
exactly right. Yeah, we eat more spices, we eat hot food, and sometimes different section of the different parts, different people have different tastes. Hotter the better. And
So not too long after you arrived here, you and your husband started your family, and 2 of your children are here today, Shalini and Swati. And I just wondered, were there any differences that you faced when raising children? Did you have any challenging moments there in... Shalini, you and I grew up together, so we know about challenging teenagers and all of that. But what would it have been like had you raised them in India versus here? Did you ever think about that? What were some of the differences that you felt raising your family here?
well, first thing, I would not have to take care of them myself anyway. I would have some help. And I think so much gap was filled by mother and Mrs. Brem, Mrs. North, Mrs. Gooding. They all helped me a lot. Why prenatal classes, in India they never thought about it. Yes, I think it is necessary, it was needed, especially when you go to other countries. And that kind of things, it was good learning lesson for us. When I was pregnant, I did attend a VNA classes, and that was suggested by Mrs. Brem and Mrs. Catlin. There was another couple in Menasha High School, and I think he was from Mexico, and his wife was here, and we met Mrs. North. We both of them did not have a transportation, so she will take us from our home to the VNA and take us back to our home. So those kind of help we did not know. We learned a lot from those classes too. Mm-hmm. Expectation was there, and later on they take care of the baby. I would not have to do all those things myself if I was home. Somebody was always there. But I think that gap was filled up by the friends.
One of the things that I've always admired about your family is you just seem to have this wonderful ability to maintain your Indian culture and traditions and at the same time become very American as well. And how did you strike that balance? How did you figure out how to best do that? Maybe that's a difficult question to answer, but I have always admired your family for that.
Well, you can ask them. They were for some time and they did not like it.
All right, maybe we should ask Shalini and Swati to answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, I was the oldest girl. Our brother, was 3 years older, and so there was definitely a difference between what boys could do than what girls could do. And I think that was much more apparent maybe from the Indian side of things, where I think if an American family wouldn't have had those differences. So if it was you and I wanting to go play or go to school dances, well, that was something totally unheard of, so that was a, certain challenge. But I think what Mom and Dad did that was really very good is, they started an Indian prayer group for us. And so we would meet every week, so we would maintain the culture, learn the religion. They started an Indian prayer association, and it really kind of focused on the kids to make sure that we knew about the culture. And then at the same time, Dad loved, just the American way. If it was learning to go boating or camping, it was like skiing, anything and everything he wanted to try. So whatever all the, Americans were doing, he wanted to try. And so we really got exposed to a little bit of everything. And Swati, I think her love of boating and lighthouses.
Yeah, I think the best example I can share is, when we were growing up, every Sunday we would go to puja. And we would be at puja until maybe 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And in the summertime, we would come home and go boating in the afternoon. So on a Sunday in the summertime, we very much were balancing, the Indian culture in the morning and the religion, and the American culture in the afternoon. And I think that's one of the best examples of, the best of both worlds. And yes, my love of boating and lighthouses really started on Lake Winnebago and at Kimberly Point, and I continue that today. So, there's for sure, I think if we look back on it today and our experiences growing up versus what we felt, growing up, very different. But I think today we can say, yeah, it was very balanced and we got the best of both, and we continue to try to find that balance today.
One of the things that I can remember from our childhood is you were in Girl Scouts, and I think you had the record set for number of Girl Scout cookies sold.
And my daughter continues that tradition. Actually, she's
wonderful.
always number one.
Such an entrepreneur. But it's interesting because I think your mom had that connection with the Girl Scouts from very early on. And because we found articles in the newspaper where you were teaching local Girl Scouts about Indian culture.
Brownies.
Yes, and actually somebody came to the exhibit, visited us, and said, I remember learning all about India from someone. Oh, it's this woman. So that was really exciting, and I love small world stories like that. But
And I think there was even one example like that when you posted a photo on Facebook of Mom. I can't remember what the article was about, but in that same historical sense, a family wrote back and said, "Oh my gosh, I had this Mrs. Joshi as a teacher. Oh, then it was, oh, this is the lady we bought her house." You know, so very much that's the wonderful benefit of small town Neenah is everybody has a connection to everybody and doesn't even realize it. So.
Yeah, so one of the things I think that was so relevant, especially today and what's happening in the world is, diversity, equity, inclusion, and having allies. And I think what Mom did, through the help and support of your family with, if it was Grandma Catlin and your mom and the others, is just being allies and giving the opportunity to have people learn about a culture. So it was that we weren't so foreign and break down some of that ignorance. And it's something that I really try to do today in sharing that culture of foods with our family and friends. And I think Mom can share what she did to share those cultural differences.
Well, I learned a lot from them because they acted like my big sisters, my big mothers. They had plenty of experience. Mrs. Gooding, the children were also at that time like a teenagers. And then Tom, John, Markley. Markley was young. And we tried to follow little culture in between. When Mark was born, then there is little ceremony that we do it. When he was 2 years old, 3 years old, we don't cut the hair for boys. And Grandma was a little bit upset. And she says, "What is that? He is a boy. You can't comb his hair like that. He looks like a girl. Everybody will say, oh, you are a beautiful girl." So she got a little bit one time agitated and she said, "I'm not going to wait like this. This is my child. I'm going to cut his hair no matter what." So finally Dave says, "Okay, I have written to my father and he has given special days because in India first haircut for boys is also religious part. So we go to special temple, they do some religious ceremony, cut the hair, and after that, always dinner party is there besides all these things anyway. So then you can go to the barber and then cut. And she was waiting for it, so she took him there. And they said, "Just wait for 2 more weeks, please." So he did, and happens to be Mark was the first grandchild in the family. So for grandparents, first grandboy and a granddaughter. So to them, after a long time, they got a grandchild. So grandfather was very uptight. "Don't do this, don't do this, don't do." So finally they said, "I have no other choice. You got to give me one date because I can't hold up too long here." So he sent the date and we did it, and Grandma was right there. She took it to barber and she said, "Okay, now you can do whatever you want to do." So that was good, and as a sister she takes first haircut and always some gift is there too. So Markley became a sister. So Markley became indirectly auntie for Mark, and she was so happy with it. And Grandpa, we just cool it down later on because we tried to help Grandpa as much as we could. Sometimes it did not go right, but choice was not too much.
Well, I am just so thrilled that you agreed to be part of our exhibit Tracing Our Paths because your story is amazing and we're just so happy that you're a part of it. I think it would be great now to find out a little bit about some of the items that you contributed to the exhibit and why you chose them in particular. So I think we'll do that now and then it will be maybe an encouragement to people to come and visit the exhibit.
Well, we want to say thank you so much for this opportunity. I think what's interesting is it's wonderful tribute to share, mom and dad's story, but also how it just intertwines. And whenever everybody asks us, what brought your mom and dad here, you're always part of our story.
Oh.
So your family is. So it's
Yeah.
a neat thing as the first Indians to this area, but to how that connection comes full circle.
We never expected in India that we will have such a nice family, and father would be happy that at least she is taken care by very good people. He never have an idea until we write them letters. And are you okay? Are you okay? Is baby okay? It's too much. No, don't take him out. Don't do this. Don't do this. Finally, grandma wrote a letter to him, and then he says, please relax. She's my child. I will take care of her. Don't
Oh.
worry. And really satisfied him.
I'm so glad we're part of the same family.
Well, as I say, I come from a very small family. And that's why he was worrying too much. Because he lost too many children. And last child I was here. So for him, he lost everything. So that's why he was very upset. But it helped after grandma's letters. It made it good.
Good.
So-
Well, great. Well,
And the items I got it at that time, I did not know that I was coming to Neenah. I was going to go to Madison, and I was allowed to take some weight. So whatever the extra things I need to use it, I got it with me. Because what he mentioned, we have pots and pans here, we have plates are here, but whatever the extra things you need, we do not know where to get it. Over and above, the money was tight. We were not allowed to get the dollars. So you cannot go and buy everything from the market also, even though possibility is available there. So what you need in a kitchen, daily things, what was available in the house or you bought it, that you may not be able to get it in a student area, because Madison was student area. And 50 years back, the men never cook in the house anyway, so they did not know what is available, what is not available. So Krishna Amin told whatever the advice he got it, he said, if she does not have a weight problem, she can bring this many things, so at least it will help her to start.
okay.
So that's where the things are there.
Okay. Well, the way that Shalini and Swati and you and I organized the exhibit with your artifacts is kind of by section. So there's a religious section, and then a clothing and personal items section, and then the
Kitchen items.
household items and kitchen items. So maybe you could just speak to those three areas and say a little bit about each of them. And I love the story about the sari that you were working on your way here and that you loaned it to us. So that's on display right behind Shalini.
This all goes in every container, and this is a turmeric. Now turmeric is very popular in this country. This is a yellow powder that we put in dal and vegetables. I think there is, okay. These are the mustard seeds that pops up when you put little oil before you put the vegetables inside. And hot pepper.
There's that hot pepper.
This is the one, looks like people like me cannot survive without it. And there is another one, I think that looks like we did not find it here. So maybe all these containers usually are full. and there is a cumin seeds, there is the ajma seeds, there is the dhania seeds, and then there is the mustard powder and a fenugreek. Those are all 7 seeds. We put it in. Center part will be salt, because you can make anything without salt. So, and then there is a second cover on the top that looks like it's missing, and that will be always there in our kitchen.
So
Different people have a different ways.
Tell me a little bit about this sari.
I bought the material, I got it because I like the color.
I
That's
like
my
it too.
favorite color. And I made the print first. I can put it the way I like it. At that time, fashion was with the sequins. So I bought the sequins and I fill up the design with the sequins by needle and thread.
Maybe talk about when you did that.
I got it when I came here. I had a 30 days in a boat to kill my time. So every day I do little bit, and I finished it before I reached to New York
So this was a sari you were working on as you were coming to America.
at that time.
And then we actually, your photo in one of the panels, you're wearing that sari. So that's I think, kind of an early photo of you and Dev.
I still have the sari. I use it
Still
many
use it.
times. I
So-
use it many times.
There's a great story of the Catlin kids. We met up with John Catlin 3 or 4 months ago, and he remembers one of the first times meeting Mom in that sari. And John is in his 70s now, but he has a very, very vivid memory of Mom in that sari. So
Well,
the
everybody
story
loves that
continues.
color.
Yeah, the story continues.
And
That's great.
And his memory is of meeting her, I could think when they came to the airport. But it's also interesting because that photo is actually taking place at Grandma Catlin's house. When they were first.
Well, I might have seen it because see, when second day or third day we did go to. Every time we can only go out when she comes and picks it up, because we had nowhere to go. So we had dinner few times at their house, and children will be there. John, Markley, and Tom also. So, and this is one we used to make a chapati for rolling the dough.
What is a chapati?
Chapati is a flat bread. One we can bake it, and second one we can fry it. One is very thin, we call rotli. Other one is little bit heavier, that we call bhakri. So in the morning time, we will have a chapati, rice, dal, we make it from the split pea soup with the masala, of course, and extra vegetables. Now market is usually a fresh vegetables every time in India. So in the morning ladies go buy the fresh food, fresh vegetables, temple, and come home and cook. Sometimes children, depends upon family. If the children have to go to school at 10 o'clock, they have to cook first, send the children to school first. Because our timings are from 10 to 5, our school. We don't have a lunch cafeteria in every school. We don't have a cafeteria period. Because they go to school, have a lunch, they can come home in a recess time, if they want to, between 2 and 3, go back and come home at 5 o'clock. So that's their school time.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. It's so fascinating, and we're just,
Well,
again,
that's how we were brought up.
yeah. Well, again, I'm just so grateful that you're
And
willing
all
to
these
share
things
this.
we use, and when we came here, they asked me to give a talk in a different group, Girl Scout, Boy Scout, schools, and I think some of the pictures came out from the schools too. So they are from there.
Well, thank
so
you.
all the
so
clothing are
much.
also from there.
Yes. Thank you so much.